Hi guys, and welcome back to our channel. It's Lane today, and I'm doing a little video here for Craspire using these molds that they kindly sent me a couple of months ago. So today I'm going to be making some magnets for my cottagecore kitchen, and I'm planning on using some dried ingredients for the contents of my little bottles. I've just grabbed 3 here that I thought would look interesting in resin, and this is going to be a pretty straightforward, easy project. I printed off some labels, but I do change these before the end of the project. You can find these on Pinterest, you can find these online, Canva even has some. I just picked ones that I thought would look really cute in a vintage style cottagecore, and today I'm using craft resin. Now this resin gives me quite a bit of time to work on. It's quite slow curing, so I think it degasses pretty well without actually doing anything to it, so you won't see me do much degassing. Now I'm just going to fill up the shallow parts of the mold with my ingredients. There's a few ways you could do this. You could pre-mix this with your resin, you could section off a little bit of the mold and fill it up all the way and do this in one pour. But I decided to do it this way by putting in the ingredients to see that I had enough to cover a shallow layer and then add in the resin after. I just picked dried ingredients that were more visually interesting than just the bog standard dried herbs. A lot of herbs look the same, such as this parsley here. Many of them just look like this. I did put one in just for the variation, but try and pick herbs and dried spices that just add a little bit of interest visually and are not quite so boring. So now that I've covered it up, I'm just adding my resin here and just mixing it through to make sure that every piece of that gets coated in resin and lets any air bubbles out, and then I'm just going to level them back out. I'm going to do the same for all 3 of my little bottles here and make these extremely coated in resin and then flatten them out. This one was a bit more tricky. This one probably would have been better getting mixed with the resin and then poured in, but I just kept at it and got it nice and neat in the end. Some strays got up into the top, but I just scooped them back. Now if you're going to be using paper labels, a good trick to stop them going transparent is to paint the back of them with white paint, either with gesso like I've used here, acrylic paint, or even white nail varnish. It just stops them going transparent when they're actually covered in resin. It's something I always do. It also gives them a little bit of substance and makes the paper a little thicker. Now once I let that cure for a few hours, I'm adding in just another clear coat. You don't need to make clear bottles, you can make them any colour you want on the back coat. I just find that the clear bottles will make them look more like vintage herbs and spice bottles, and I'm going to come back and do the lid separately, just painted afterwards. You could always fill in the lid with coloured resin. Now I'm just going to float my magnets on the back of my resin because it's quite a shallow layer. I did have some problems with the biggest one. It was a little bit too deep, but I just removed some of the resin to get that magnet to sit nice on the back of the herbs, and I left these to cure fully. A little bit of cleanup just to any resin that went onto the back, but I wasn't too fussed about this because I knew once they were cured I'd be sanding the back, and you can sand completely over the magnets and it'll just take off any of that excess resin. Now these are the labels I actually switched to. I found these online. I think they were from Etsy. You can actually buy the downloads for a whole bunch of these, and I picked out the ones for my specific herbs and made them in a few sizes to make sure I got the right size. Ignore the state of my hands. I've been doing gardening and DIY, and I swear my hands are clean, I just can't get it out. Now as you can see, these demolded beautifully. They are very good molds. They're very shiny when they come out. My resin wasn't completely cured, it was a little bit bendy, but as I'm going to be doing more resin layers to this, I wasn't too fussed. Now I'm going to add my labels to the fronts. You could have done this in your resin layer by putting them in your mold first, but I just prefer to do it this way. I like to dome things if I'm going to put labels on the front. It just gives a little more thickness to the piece I'm making. Now I'm using black nail varnish to do my lids because it's basically an enamel paint. These aren't going to get much touchy-feeliness going on with these little magnets. If anything, they'll get moved around the fridge when I need to hold a post-it note or a memo, but not very often. They're mostly just for decor. so nail varnish is totally fine and will last. You could use any kind of paint and sealer. Now I am going to sand the fronts of my little bottles here just to make sure my labels get a good stick, but I've also found that when you're going to dome resin on the front of something, if you sand off the shiny layer up to the edge that you want to dome, not only will it stop the resin leaking over the edge quite so much, but it'll also stop it pulling away from the edge because it grips onto that matte surface. I'm going to cover my front with a little bit Mod Podge, stick on my labels where I want them, and then I'm going to Mod Podge over the top. This will stop the resin from bleeding out any ink or bleaching out any of the image, and Mod Podge does really well under resin. Resin adheres to Mod Podge just fine. Try not go all the way to the edges though. You want to leave some of your original resin exposed to make sure the resin has the strongest bond ever. You want it to adhere to itself. So once that's dry, I'm just going to dome the surfaces of these little bottles. This is a super simple project, but so cute. I love the whole vintage thing. My aesthetic is cottagecore, my kitchen is very cottagecore, and these are going to go absolutely perfectly. So I dome them, all three of them, and leave them to cure. I left these for a couple of days because the craft resin does take quite a while to cure, and I wanted to make sure they were super solid before I put any fingerprints on them. So if you want to buy these molds, I have put the link for the Craspire shop down below in the description to these exact molds, and I'll be making a couple more videos for Craspire from some of their products, but I hope you agree these are super cute. And you could do a million things with these bottle molds. Let me know down in the comments if you like them and what you think of them. And I will catch you in the next video.